Log Horizon, Overlord, Sword Art Online, Hack. Long ago, the four fan bases lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Sword Art Online fans attacked. Only Mother's Basement, master of all Sword Art Online hate, could stop them, but when the anime community needed him most, he didn't make more Sword Art Online hate videos. Many years passed, and my brother and I discovered the new Sword Art Online hater, a YouTuber named SAO Hater. And although his hating skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to destroy anything. But I believe SAO Hater can destroy Sword Art Online.
The live-action version of Avatar. The Last Airbender on Netflix is amazing, and it does a really strong job of bringing a well-loved story into a new format. From the very beginning, it feels like the creators actually cared about honoring the original while still adapting it in a way that works for live action. One of the biggest highlights is how bending is shown on screen. The element powers don't feel like basic special effects added on top of everything. Instead, they feel powerful, grounded, and connected to the world around the characters. Every fight scene has real impact, and each bending style feels unique. Whether it's water, earth, fire, or air, it makes the action feel more intense and more believable at the same time. The world building also stands out a lot. Each nation feels different and well thought out, not just in how it looks but in the atmosphere it creates. The Fire Nation feels harsh and controlled. The Water Tribes feel calm and connected to nature, and the Earth Kingdom feels solid and grounded. These differences help the world feel alive and give the journey a strong sense of scale and purpose. The characters also help carry the show. They feel familiar to fans of the original series, but they're also presented in a way that fits this version of the story. There's a stronger focus on their emotional journeys, their growth, and the pressure they face along the way. That helps the quieter moments hit harder and makes the story feel more grounded overall. Another strong point is how the show balances action with storytelling. It doesn't rely only on big visual moments. It also takes time to build relationships, show conflict between characters, and explore the weight of their choices. That balance helps the series feel more complete and gives the story more emotional depth. Overall, the Netflix adaptation of Avatar, The Last Airbender works because it respects the heart of the original while still standing on its own. It's visually impressive, emotionally engaging, and full of moments that remind you why this story has stayed so popular for so long. This is a show that's definitely worth watching. It stands on its own really well, even if you've never seen the original animated series before. That's something a lot of adaptations struggle with, but this one does a great job of making the story clear, engaging, and easy to follow from the very beginning. What really makes it work is how quickly it pulls you into the world. You don't feel lost or left behind if you're new to it. Instead, the story introduces everything at a steady pace so you can understand the characters, the nations, and what's going on without needing any outside context. The live-action version also does a strong job of building curiosity. Each episode leaves you wanting to know what happens next. The story keeps moving forward in a way that feels exciting, with just the right mix of action, emotion, and world building to keep you invested. Even without watching the original animated show, it's easy to get hooked on the journey. The characters feel easy to follow, the stakes feel real, and the world itself is interesting enough that you want to keep exploring it. It's the kind of show that pulls you in gradually and then suddenly you realize you've already watched multiple episodes without stopping. That's what makes it so impressive. It doesn't rely on nostalgia or prior knowledge. It works on its own as a full experience, and that's why it's so easy for new viewers to get attached to it so quickly. After the disaster of M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender movie, you can tell the showrunners for the Netflix version really wanted to get things right this time. There was clearly a lot of pressure going into this adaptation, especially since the live-action movie left such a bad impression on fans of the original story. Because of that, this new version feels much more careful and intentional in how it handles the source material. It's not just trying to retell the story quickly. It feels like it's trying to respect it. You can see that in how much effort goes into the world building, the character designs, and the way key story moments are handled with more weight and attention. There's also a noticeable focus on clarity and structure. Instead of rushing through major events or changing things in confusing ways, the story takes its time to make sure everything feels understandable and connected. That helps the audience actually follow what's going on without feeling lost. especially for new viewers who haven't seen the original animated series. On top of that, the tone feels more grounded and serious, which helps the story land better in live action. The show seems aware of what didn't work in past adaptations and tries to avoid those same mistakes by sticking closer to the heart of the original story while still making it fit a new format. Overall, you get the sense that this adaptation was made with a lot more care and respect for the material. It feels like a response to past criticism, and that effort shows in how much more focused and polished it comes across. Netflix feels like the perfect place for a show like this, especially because it's a platform that already has a lot of experience turning animated stories into live-action series. They've been experimenting with this kind of adaptation for years, and that gives them a better sense of what works on screen and what doesn't. One of the biggest advantages is the format. Netflix shows don't have to fit into a strict schedule or short runtime the way traditional TV often does. That means more room for world building, character development, and slower storytelling when it's needed. For a story as detailed as this one, that extra space really matters. It allows the show to breathe instead of rushing through important moments. Netflix has also already taken on several other live-action adaptations of animated series, so they've had time to learn from both successes and mistakes. Each new project seems to improve on the last in some way, whether that's in pacing, visual effects, or how closely they stick to the source material. That experience helps build confidence that they can handle big, beloved franchises better than before. Another key point is how global Netflix is as a platform. A show like this doesn't just reach one audience, it reaches viewers all over the world at the same time. That kind of reach is perfect for a story with a large fan base and strong cultural impact, because it allows the hype and discussion to grow instantly across different countries. Overall, Netflix feels like a natural fit for this kind of adaptation. The combination of experience, creative freedom, and global reach makes it one of the best platforms to bring a story like this into live action in a way that feels big, polished, and accessible to both new viewers and longtime fans. The concept of Avatar is really awesome. The idea of people having the power to control elements is instantly exciting because it taps into something almost everyone can imagine. Fire, water, earth, and air are all natural forces we see every day, and turning them into powers that people can actually use makes the world feel both familiar and magical at the same time. What makes it even better is how each element feels different in both style and personality. Fire feels aggressive and powerful, water feels flexible and flowing, earth feels strong and steady, and air feels fast and free. That gives each type of bending its own identity, so it's not just about power, it's also about how someone fights and how they think. It also opens the door for endless creativity in fights and storytelling. Instead of everyone relying on the same kind of abilities, battles become unique depending on the element being used. That keeps things interesting because every fight can feel different and unpredictable. On top of that, the idea of someone mastering all the elements as the Avatar takes the concept even further. It adds a sense of balance and responsibility, not just power. It turns the story into something bigger than just action, because it's also about growth, control, and understanding the world. Overall, it's a simple concept on the surface, but it has so much depth built into it. That's what makes it so memorable and why it connects with so many people. The series is also heavily influenced by Asian culture and mythology, and that influence is a big part of what makes the world feel so unique and memorable. From the visual design to the storytelling style, you can see inspiration drawn from different Asian traditions in almost every part of the show. A lot of the bending styles are clearly shaped by real martial arts, which gives every movement a grounded and intentional feel. Instead of just being random magic powers, each element has its own fighting style that connects to real physical techniques. That makes the action feel more realistic and structured, even in a fantasy setting. The world itself also reflects different cultural influences in the way the nations are built and presented. The Water Tribes, Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation, and Air Nomads all feel distinct, and each one carries design choices that hint at real-world inspirations in architecture, clothing, and philosophy. This helps the world feel deeper and more thought out, rather than just a generic fantasy setting. There's also a strong connection to ideas found in Asian mythology and philosophy, especially around balance, nature, and harmony between opposing forces. The concept of the avatar itself ties into that idea of maintaining balance in the world, which adds more meaning to the story beyond just action and adventure. Overall, these influences give the series a strong identity. They make the world feel rich, grounded, and culturally layered, which is a big reason why it stands out compared to many other fantasy stories. It's exciting how the Avatar show has already been renewed for a second and third season, because it shows a lot of confidence in the project right from the start. When a studio commits to multiple seasons early on, it usually means they believe in the story, the cast, and the direction the series is heading. It also gives the show more room to grow without rushing things. Instead of worrying about whether it will get continued, the story can be planned out over a longer arc. That kind of structure is really important for a story like this, where character development, world building, and long-term storytelling all matter a lot. For fans, it also builds anticipation. Knowing there's more already on the way makes every episode feel more meaningful, because you're not just watching a single season. You're watching the beginning of a much larger journey that already has a clear future ahead of it. It also helps create a stronger sense of stability around the show. Early renewals usually mean the production team can focus more on quality and consistency instead of constantly worrying about ratings or cancellation. That can lead to better storytelling and more carefully planned seasons. Overall, the fact that it's already been renewed for multiple seasons makes the show feel like a long-term project with real momentum behind it. And that's always exciting for viewers who want to see the story fully unfold. This series is a standout in the fantasy genre because it manages to blend strong world building, emotional storytelling, and clear themes in a way that feels both engaging and easy to follow. Instead of relying only on spectacle, it builds a world that feels structured and meaningful, where every nation, character, and conflict has a purpose in the bigger story. One of the biggest reasons it stands out is how immersive the world feels. The setting isn't just a background for the story, it feels alive. Different regions have their own cultures, styles, and beliefs, which makes the world feel wide and detailed without becoming confusing. That kind of depth helps the fantasy setting feel more real and memorable. The characters also play a huge role in making the series special. They don't feel one-dimensional or static. Instead, they grow and change as the story progresses, shaped by their experiences and the challenges they face. That growth makes the journey more meaningful, because you can actually see how events affect them over time. The balance between action and storytelling is another key strength. The series knows when to deliver exciting moments and when to slow down and focus on character development or emotional scenes. That rhythm keeps the story from feeling rushed or empty, and it helps every moment feel like it matters. Overall, what makes this series stand out in the fantasy genre is how well all of its parts work together. The world, the characters, and the story all feel connected, creating an experience that is both exciting and emotionally engaging from start to finish. The Avatar fandom is very nice and welcoming, and that's one of the reasons it feels so enjoyable to be part of. A lot of fans are genuinely excited to share their love for the series, whether that's talking about favorite characters, breaking down episodes, or sharing fan art and theories. There's a real sense of passion behind it, but it usually comes from a place of appreciation rather than hostility. What stands out is how open the community can be to new viewers. People who are just getting into the series are often met with encouragement instead of judgment. Whether someone is watching the original animated show for the first time or discovering it through a live-action adaptation, there's usually someone willing to help them understand the story or share context without making them feel left out. There's also a strong creative side to the fandom. Fans put a lot of effort into art, edits, discussions, and deep dives into the world and characters. That kind of creativity helps keep the community active and fun, because there's always something new being shared or talked about. Of course, like any large fandom, there can still be disagreements or debates from time to time. But overall, the general tone tends to lean more toward enthusiasm and shared appreciation for the series rather than negativity. That makes it feel like a space where people can enjoy the story together, even if they experience it in different ways. Overall, the Avatar fandom has a reputation for being one of those communities where people come together because they love the world and the story, and that shared enjoyment is what keeps it feeling positive and welcoming. Avatar, The Last Airbender stands out as a much stronger and more consistently written story compared to Sword Art Online. One of the biggest differences is how carefully Avatar builds its world and characters from the ground up. Every part of the story feels planned, with clear character growth, meaningful relationships, and a world that actually feels alive and connected. In Avatar, the characters are given time to develop in a natural way. You can see them change as the story goes on, shaped by their experiences and the challenges they face. Their choices feel earned, and even smaller moments end up having an impact later in the story. That kind of long-term development makes the characters feel real and memorable. The storytelling is also tightly structured. Each arc builds on the last, and nothing feels like it's happening without purpose. Even when the show slows down, it's usually doing so to develop characters or set up future events, which helps everything feel connected and intentional. On the other hand, Sword Art Online often struggles with consistency in its writing and character development. The pacing can feel uneven, and some character decisions or story shifts don't always feel fully built up or explored in depth. That can make parts of the story feel less grounded or less impactful than they could have been. Because of these differences, Avatar ends up feeling more cohesive and carefully crafted overall. It delivers a more balanced mix of story, character development, and world building, which helps it leave a stronger and more lasting impression. Honestly, even Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender movie is still more coherent in some ways than Sword Art Online. And that comparison alone says a lot about the consistency issues people point out with the series. At least in the movie, the story is trying to follow a single clear path from beginning to end, even if the execution and pacing choices didn't land well for a lot of viewers. With Sword Art Online, the problems often come from a lack of consistency in storytelling, where ideas, tone, and character direction can feel like they shift depending on the arc. There's also something to be said about structure. Even flawed adaptations usually have a clear sense of what they're trying to adapt or move toward. In contrast, Sword Art Online can sometimes feel uneven in how it handles its own world and character progression, with certain developments feeling rushed or underexplored. So the comparison ends up being less about praising one over the other and more about highlighting how important structure and consistency are in storytelling. When those elements aren't steady, even strong concepts can lose their impact pretty quickly. The fictional game design of Sword Art Online is often criticized because it doesn't feel like a believable or well-structured MMO world. On paper, the idea of a full-dive virtual reality game is really interesting, but the way the system is presented in the story doesn't always follow consistent or logical game design rules. One of the biggest issues is how unclear the game systems can feel. Things like progression, balance, and mechanics often seem to shift depending on what the story needs at the moment. Instead of feeling like a stable game world with consistent rules, it can come across more like a setting that adjusts itself to fit the plot. Another problem is how uneven the gameplay structure feels. Some elements are treated like they should be extremely difficult or dangerous, while other situations don't seem to match that same level of risk or design logic. That inconsistency makes it harder to understand how the game is supposed to function as a whole. The progression system also doesn't always feel fully developed. In a real MMO-style game, systems like leveling, gear, and player skill usually follow clear patterns so players can understand how to improve. In Sword Art Online, those systems can feel less clearly defined, which takes away from the feeling of it being a believable, functioning online world. Overall, the concept of a trapped VR MMO is strong, but the execution of the game design often feels more focused on storytelling convenience than on building a consistent, immersive system. That gap is what makes the fictional game world feel less grounded than it could have been. Sword Art Online had everything going for it on paper, yet it still ends up feeling like a big disappointment to a lot of viewers. The core idea is strong, the setup is instantly gripping, and the concept of a deadly VR MMO had huge potential for tension, storytelling, and world building. At the start, it gives you a premise that should feel intense and unforgettable. A trapped game world where death in the game means death in real life is a powerful hook. It's the kind of idea that could carry a full series on its own if it's handled carefully and consistently. But as the story moves forward, a lot of that early promise doesn't always get followed through in a satisfying way. The pacing can feel uneven, and certain story directions feel like they don't fully build on what came before. Instead of expanding the original concept in a deep and structured way, the focus sometimes shifts in ways that make the overall story feel less tight than it could be. The world itself also doesn't always feel as consistent or immersive as it could. For a story built around a game world, you expect clear systems, rules, and progression that help the audience understand how everything works. When those elements feel unclear or inconsistent, it weakens the impact of the setting. On top of that, character arcs and emotional moments don't always land as strongly as they could, especially when earlier setup isn't fully paid off later in the story. That makes some developments feel less earned, even when the intention is to create something dramatic or meaningful. So even though the foundation of Sword Art Online is incredibly strong, the execution doesn't always match the potential of its premise. And that gap between idea and delivery is what leads many viewers to feel like it could have been something much more consistent and memorable than what it ended up being. When it comes to Sword Art Online, discussions online can get pretty extreme on both sides, and that's part of what makes talking about it frustrating at times. Some fans treat the series as a near-flawless masterpiece, and because of that, even basic criticism can get shut down quickly. Instead of engaging with points about pacing, writing, or character development, the response is often to defend the show no matter what, as if any flaw being mentioned automatically invalidates the entire series. That kind of reaction can make it hard to have a balanced conversation. When one side refuses to acknowledge any issues and the other side focuses only on the negatives, there's very little room left for actual discussion about what works and what doesn't. At the same time, this isn't unique to just one fandom. A lot of popular series end up with divided communities where opinions become very polarized. The stronger the attachment people have to a show, the more likely it is that criticism will be met with strong pushback. So instead of a calm middle ground, conversations around Sword Art Online often end up swinging between overpraise and harsh criticism, which makes online discussions feel more intense than they probably need to be. There are so many different shows out there that people can watch depending on what they're into, whether that's action, fantasy, mystery, or something more character-driven. The amount of variety in anime and storytelling in general is huge right now, and new series are constantly coming out with fresh ideas, stronger writing, and more polished execution. When you compare that to older or more debated series like Sword Art Online, it becomes clear that there are a lot of options that approach storytelling in different and often more consistent ways. Some shows focus heavily on world building, some put a stronger emphasis on character development, and others take more time to build up their plots in a way that feels more structured and intentional. Because of that, viewers have a lot of freedom to explore stories that match what they actually enjoy. Whether someone wants something fast-paced, emotional, deeply detailed, or creatively unique, there's always something else out there that can offer a different experience. That's what makes modern anime and entertainment so interesting. It's not really about one show being the only option, but about how many different directions storytelling can go in, and how easy it is to find something that fits your taste once you start exploring. Additionally, let's take a look at how the characters can defeat the Fire Nation in Avatar: The Last Airbender, both in the live-action show and the movie versions, because this is where you really see how different adaptations handle the same core story in very different ways. In the live-action series, the path toward stopping the Fire Nation feels more structured and grounded in the journey of the characters. The story takes its time showing how each step matters, from learning bending skills to building alliances and understanding the larger conflict. The focus is not just on getting to the final goal, but on how the characters grow into the people capable of facing such a powerful enemy. The idea of defeating the Fire Nation is tied closely to balance, preparation, and emotional growth, which makes the journey feel more meaningful and earned. On the other hand, in M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender movie, the approach feels more compressed and rushed in comparison. Important story elements are introduced quickly, and the larger plan to stop the Fire Nation doesn't always get enough time to develop naturally on screen. Because of that, the sense of progression feels less steady, and key moments don't always have the same impact they would if they had more build-up behind them. When you compare the two, the difference comes down to pacing and development. The live-action series has more space to explore the journey step by step, while the movie has to fit everything into a much shorter runtime. That changes how the story feels overall, especially when it comes to understanding the stakes and the characters' growth along the way. So even though both versions are telling the same basic story of stopping the Fire Nation, the way that Journey is presented makes a big difference in how engaging and complete it feels. Afterwards, we can take a look at other anime live-action movies and shows as well.
Here's how to beat the Fire Nation in Avatar: The Last Airbender. In the capital city, an Earthbender fights several Firebenders. He gets captured and killed by Fire Lord Sozin. The Earthbender was outnumbered by the Firebenders, but there were some tactics he could have pulled to win the fight. The Earthbender could have created barriers or walls to block incoming fire attacks. The Earthbender could have also created a huge fissure in the ground, making the Firebenders fall to their death. Sozin plans to wipe out all the air nomads to get rid of the Avatar, but the Avatar would just be reborn somewhere else. Killing all the air nomads wouldn't put an end to the Avatar for good. At the Southern Air Temple, a young boy named Aang learns that he's the Avatar. The Fire Nation starts an attack. Aang takes off with his flying bison Appa. The Firebenders kill all the air nomads, using the comet's power to their advantage. Yet there are still some ways the Airbenders could have fought back. The Airbenders can manipulate the air around Firebenders to limit their oxygen supply, making it difficult for them to use their fire attacks. Because fire requires oxygen to sustain combustion, the Airbenders can also create shields or walls of air to deflect incoming fire blasts. This defensive strategy can protect them while they plan their counterattacks. Caught in a storm, Aang and Appa fall into the water. Aang quickly airbends a protective bubble around them. Katara and Sokka hunt for food. They stumble upon a frozen ice ball. Katara bends the water, pulling their canoe nearer while accidentally cracking the ice, sending a beam of light shooting into the sky. Zuko, the exiled Fire Nation prince, spots the light from his nearby ship. Aang is unfrozen from the ice, and he's taken back to the village. Gran notices right away that Aang is an airbender. For the past 3 years, Zuko's been on the hunt for the Avatar, banished from the Fire Nation until he captures the Avatar. He's desperate to return home, but why is he so set on going back to the place that rejected him and the family that disowned him? He could settle down and make a new life elsewhere. Tracking down the Avatar seems like an impossible mission. If Zuko hadn't been in this exact spot at just the right time, he'd have missed the light beam entirely and never gotten anywhere close to finding the Avatar. Aang wakes up and soon after Appa arrives. Aang then shares his story with the others and learns that he was stuck in the ice for a whole century. Zuko and his fellow Fire Nation soldiers arrive. He demands that the villagers hand over Aang, or he'll burn this place to the ground. Sokka believes handing over Aang would be the safest option to avoid conflict, but Katara disagrees, and she wants to protect Aang. They've only just met Aang though, and they don't have any obligation to protect him. Sokka fights Zuko, but it's not exactly a fair matchup. Zuko's got bending skills while Sokka doesn't. They could have set some rules to even the odds, like banning bending during the fight. Zuko ends up winning. Aang comes forward, but it's not the smartest move. He could have flown away on Appa. Aang gives in and agrees to go with Zuko, as long as the villagers are left unharmed. Katara and Sokka set out to rescue Aang. Riding on Appa, Aang manages to break free and takes off on his glider. The Firebenders start hurling fireballs at him, landing a hit. Aang shouldn't have flown in a straight line. Aang falls, but Sokka grabs him. Zuko throws a fireball, but Katara uses her waterbending to nullify the attack. The characters travel to Kyoshi Island. They're allowed to stay here for 48 hours. Katara practices her waterbending and Aang joins in, splashing each other with water. But this isn't the time to be fooling around. With only 48 hours on Kyoshi Island, Aang must focus on learning about being the Avatar before their time runs out. Zhao and some Fire Nation soldiers, along with Zuko and his crew, arrive on the island. Katara and Sokka should grab Aang and escape on Appa. Katara takes on Zuko. She's got the upper hand. Considering water should have the natural advantage over fire, Kyoshi takes over Aang's body, and the Fire Nation soldiers back off. The characters fly away on Appa. Zhao sends a letter to Fire Lord Ozai, informing him that the Avatar has returned. Some rebels try to kill Ozai, but they get caught and killed. It was a pretty foolish plan. After all, those people couldn't even bend. How did they think they'd take down someone as mighty as Ozai? They should have defected and joined another nation. The characters journey to Omashu. A guy named Jet gives them some clothes to help them blend in. However, as soon as they step into the city, they ditch their disguises. It's not a wise move. They're going to attract more attention. It would have been smarter to keep wearing the clothes to blend in with the locals. Aang chooses to stick around in Omashu to assist with the bombings. Helping people is great, but Aang is getting sidetracked. This seems like a pointless detour. Aang's top priority should be reaching the Northern Water Tribe ASAP. Jet introduces Katara to the Freedom Fighters, a group of orphans and refugees fighting against the Fire Nation. It turns out Jet and the Freedom Fighters are the ones behind the bombings. They understand innocent lives will be lost, but to them it's the cost of fighting for freedom. All the members of the Freedom Fighters have experienced personal losses. Why would they want others to suffer the way they did? Zuko and his uncle Iroh confront the characters. Katara and Sokka head out to prevent the next bombing, while Aang stays back to fight Zuko. Zuko. However, Zuko decides not to use his firebending. In that case, Aang should find it much easier to defeat Zuko. Aang could suck all the air out of Zuko's lungs and make him suffocate. Katara prevents the bombing in the nick of time. Aang gets caught by earthbenders. He shouldn't have displayed his airbending abilities in public. It only drew more attention to himself. Aang could use controlled air currents to slice through the restraints on his feet. Jet is about to kill Katara for betraying the freedom fighters, but she manages to freeze him in ice. Katara should kill Jet. If Jet breaks free, he's bound to seek revenge, and Katara would constantly have to watch her back. Ending Jet now would prevent any future trouble. Zuko arrives to rescue Iroh, taking down multiple earthbenders in the process. However, the earthbenders should have had the upper hand against Zuko. If they had restrained his arms and legs, like they did with Aang, Zuko wouldn't have been able to use his firebending, and he would have been vulnerable to their attacks. The earthbenders can also create solid walls or barriers to block Zuko's fire attacks. Iroh decides not to kill a guy, and he ends up getting stabbed in the back. Iroh should have taken the kill instead of showing mercy. In war, it's a matter of kill or be killed. An enemy shouldn't be shown any compassion. Aang flies to a Fire Nation shrine, but he gets attacked by firebenders. Revealing himself was a risky move. The Fire Nation is actively hunting the Avatar, so Aang is putting himself in danger. A bounty hunter named June comes and she paralyzes Aang. Aang should have used his airbending to blow June away, instead of allowing her to get near him. June delivers Aang to Zuko and Iroh. Zhao and a group of Fire Nation soldiers come, pressuring Zuko and Iroh to hand over Aang to them. Zhao has a chat with Aang. He decides against killing him, since the Avatar would just be reborn, and the Fire Nation would have to restart their search. At least Aang gets to live. A masked man breaks Aang out of prison. The man gets knocked out, and Aang takes off his mask, revealing him to be Zuko. Aang takes Zuko and escapes. Aang should have left him to die. Zuko isn't a hero, and Aang shouldn't be helping him. They're enemies. And it's obvious that Zuko only broke Aang out for his own selfish reasons. Aang tries to convince Zuko that he doesn't have to follow in the footsteps of the other firebenders. Does Aang really believe he can change Zuko's mind? Zuko has dedicated the last 3 years to hunting down the Avatar, so he can finally go back home. He's not gonna suddenly abandon his goal when he's so close to achieving it. In a flashback, Zuko is seen in an Agni Kai duel against Ozai. Zuko, showing compassion, ends up with his face burned by Ozai. Zuko shouldn't have hesitated or held back. He should have burned Ozai to win the duel. Aang hopes that he and Zuko can be friends, but Zuko ends up attacking him. Aang is way too trusting and naive. It's obvious Zuko isn't interested in being friends. Aang should have killed Zuko when he was unconscious. The characters travel to the Northern Water Tribe. Aang confesses that he hasn't mastered any other bending besides air. He shouldn't be going around and openly declaring himself as the Avatar. If Aang can't bend the other elements, it'll be hard for people to rely on him. The waterbenders can harness the power of water to heal injuries, and Katara learns how to do it. She's also informed that women aren't permitted to engage in combat here. Katara should embrace her role as a healer. After all, healing is an important job. Zuko comes to fight Katara. Considering Katara's ability to control water, she should also be able to manipulate the water inside a person. Given that the average adult male is composed of about 60% water, Katara could drain all the water from Zuko's body, resulting in a fatal outcome for him. Katara freezes Zuko, but he manages to break free. Katara should have completely encased Zuko's body in ice, so he wouldn't have been able to break free. Zhao kills the moon spirit, and the waterbenders lose their powers. Iroh was adamantly against Zhao killing the moon spirit. He could have stepped in and stopped Zhao instead of standing there. Aang conjures a colossal water creature to fight the Fire Nation. Zuko fights Zhao. He spares Zhao's life and walks away. However, Zhao attacks Zuko. Iroh intervenes and kills Zhao. It seems Zuko still hasn't learned that he shouldn't show enemies compassion. Aang destroys all the Fire Nation ships. Yue sacrifices herself to bring the moon spirit back. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.
Here's how to beat the Fire Nation in The Last Airbender. The movie begins with Katara and her brother Sokka hunting for food. They spot something beneath the ice. Sokka decides to break it, but it's risky to smash the ice you're standing on. The characters could have plunged into the freezing water. A ball of ice is revealed. Katara breaks the ice, freeing a boy named Aang and his flying pet bison Appa. The disgraced Fire Nation prince, Zuko, arrives and demands that Aang come with him or he'll burn down the village. Aang decides to surrender and accompany Zuko. Katara, as a waterbender, could have taken down Zuko. All she needed to do was extinguish the fire nearby, leaving the firebenders helpless without a source of flames. Gran is convinced that Aang is the Avatar, a person who can master all 4 elements. Aang manages to escape from the Fire Nation ship. The characters journeys to Aang's homeland. There, Aang learns the heartbreaking truth that his friends and fellow air nomads are all gone. Being trapped in ice for a century, Aang missed the Fire Nation starting a war against the other nations, leading to all the air nomads being killed as the Fire Nation tried to eliminate the Avatar. It's explained that Zuko was kicked out of the Fire Nation, and he has to find the Avatar to go back. The characters are arrested at an Earth Kingdom village. They're imprisoned with the other Earthbenders. Those who couldn't bend were allowed to live peacefully. In that case, the Earthbenders could have pretended that they didn't know how to bend to avoid being arrested and imprisoned. Aang motivates the Earthbenders to take action, and together they overpower the Fire Fire Nation soldiers, it's surprising that the Earthbenders didn't act sooner, considering they have the advantage of fighting on their own turf. The Earthbenders have the upper hand against the Firebenders, who need fire sources to use their firebending abilities. The Earthbenders could have extinguished all the nearby flames to make the Firebenders powerless. Aang confesses that he fled before learning how to bend the other elements, so he's only skilled in airbending. Aang is struggling with learning waterbending. Mastering a skill can take at least 10,000 hours, so it's understandable that he's not very skilled right away. Aang shouldn't let himself get too disheartened and frustrated. He should realize that becoming proficient at something requires a lot of time, hard work, and commitment. Iroh suggests that Zuko should find a pretty girl, fall in love, and settle down in this Fire Nation colony. It's not a bad idea. Aang visits the Northern Air Temple. He encounters a man, but it's a setup. Aang shouldn't have come here at all. He should have stayed hidden and focused on his training instead of getting sidetracked. Zhao talks to Aang. Fortunately, killing Aang won't really do much because he'll be reborn again, and then the Fire Nation will have to restart their search for the Avatar. So, at least Aang gets to keep on living. A masked man comes to rescue Aang. The masked man gets hit by a bolt and is knocked out. Aang removes the mask, revealing it's Zuko. Aang decides to flee with Zuko, but he should have left him there to die. Zuko isn't a hero, and Aang shouldn't be helping someone like him. Zuko obviously broke Aang out for his own selfish reasons. Zhao blows up the ship that Zuko is on. The characters travel to the Northern Water Tribe. The master teaches Aang how to waterbend. Sokka becomes friends with Princess Yue. Zuko is alive. He managed to escape the ship before it blew up. Aang goes to meditate, and Katara stays with him. Zuko shows up and fights Katara. Even though Zuko wins, Katara should have easily beaten him. All she had to do was put out the fire. Then Zuko would be ineffective without a source of fire for his firebending. With water nearby, Katara had a major advantage. Aang is kidnapped by Zuko again. This is why Aang should have let Zuko die earlier. The Fire Nation attacks. The waterbenders should douse all the fire, leaving the firebenders without a source to fuel their attacks. The waterbenders are surrounded by water, so they should have a clear edge. And if the waterbenders can manipulate water, could they control the water inside a person? After all, the average adult is composed of about 60% water. And if the waterbenders can bend water, is it possible for them to bend other liquids like blood? If so, winning any fight should be a breeze for the waterbenders. They can drain all the water and blood out of a person and they would die. Katara freezes Zuko in a block of ice. Instead of leaving him like that, they could break the ice. If they spare Zuko, he'll keep coming after them, relentlessly trying to capture Aang, because he has to catch the Avatar to regain his honor. Aang frees Zuko because he wants to be friends with him, but it's not a wise choice. Zuko obviously isn't here to make friends. Aang's being way too naive and trusting here. Instead of letting Zuko go, Aang should have killed him once and for all. Iroh and Zhao head to the sacred cave. Zhao kills the moon spirit to disable the waterbenders' abilities. The waterbenders should have had guards constantly watching over the moon spirit. Furthermore, Iroh was against Zhao killing the moon spirit. He should have done something to stop him instead of standing idly by. Yue sacrifices herself to revive the moon spirit. Some waterbenders drown Zhao in a ball of water, but why don't they use that tactic against all the Fire Nation soldiers? Aang enters the Avatar state and conjures a colossal wave, forcing the Fire Nation to retreat. Aang should have used the wave to kill the Fire Nation soldiers for good. Otherwise, they might come back later and stir up more trouble. Zuko's father dispatches his daughter to halt the Avatar's progress in mastering Earth and Fire. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.
Here's how to beat Piccolo in Dragon Ball Evolution. Thousands of years ago, a ruthless alien warlord named Piccolo and his minion Ozaru nearly wiped out all of humanity, causing untold suffering and loss of life. A brave group of warriors created the Mafuba, which is a powerful enchantment that sealed Piccolo deep within the earth. When his master was captured, Ozaru vanished, bringing back harmony to the world. Killing Piccolo would have been a wiser choice. In movies, whenever characters are imprisoned, they usually find a way to break free eventually, as Piccolo does later in this film. This outcome could have been avoided if Piccolo had been dealt with permanently. They also shouldn't have imprisoned Piccolo underground. They could have blasted him into space or something. Let another planet deal with Piccolo when he breaks free. On Goku's 18th birthday, his grandpa Gohan gifts him the 4-star Dragon Ball, one of 7 in total. Individually, these Dragon Balls hold no power, but when brought together, they can grant a single perfect wish. This poses a significant risk if the Dragon Balls end up in the wrong hands. An evil individual could wish for something catastrophic like world destruction. Goku's safest bet would be to destroy his Dragon Ball. That way, nobody can ever fulfill their wish since all 7 Dragon Balls are necessary for that to happen. In Avengers: Infinity War, They made it clear why they couldn't destroy the Time Stone to stop Thanos from getting it. But in this movie, they never explain why the characters can't destroy a Dragon Ball. If the Dragon Ball holds such significance, Gohan shouldn't hand it over to Goku. He should keep it stored in a safe place so nobody can find it. Having a Dragon Ball puts a big target on your back. Lots of people will want to find them to get their wish granted, so it's one more reason why Goku should get rid of his Dragon Ball or destroy it. And what happens if the wish isn't perfect? Does it simply go unfulfilled? How do we know if a wish is perfect or not? When Goku heads to school, a bully named Carrie Fuller wrecks his bike. Despite feeling provoked, Goku remembers his promise to Gohan and refrains from retaliating against Carrie. Goku could report Carrie's actions to a counselor. Schools should have support systems in place for students facing bullying and harassment. Piccolo has escaped, but they never clarify how. He's out with his sidekick Mai, hunting down the Dragon Balls. This is precisely why Piccolo should have been killed instead of imprisoned. Whoever owns a Dragon Ball should destroy it, so Piccolo can't get his hands on them. During class, Goku talks about the Namex, an alien race that supposedly almost destroyed Earth over 2,000 years ago. Nobody seems to take Goku's story seriously. If such an event truly occurred, there should still be records of it, considering its significance. The time frame of documented history spans approximately 5,000 years. Goku sneaks off to attend a party hosted by his crush, Chi-Chi. He should inform Gohan about his plans beforehand. Since Gohan would probably be okay with Goku going to the party, there's really no need for Goku to sneak out. At the party, some bullies block Goku from entering. Although tempted to retaliate, Goku remains true to his promise of non-violence. Instead, he skillfully evades their attacks, causing the bullies to inadvertently harm each other. It's a clever solution to a dangerous situation. However, the bullies' actions are extreme and potentially life-threatening. It's crucial that someone informs the authorities and gets the bullies held accountable for their actions. Piccolo and Mai launch an attack on Gohan. But why are they even targeting Gohan? It's hinted that Piccolo can somehow sense the Dragon Balls, so logically, he should be heading for the party since Goku took the Dragon Ball with him. It's not like Goku left it behind at home. Piccolo crushes the house. When Goku comes back home, he discovers Gohan on the brink of death. Before dying, Gohan urges Goku to seek out Master Roshi, who has another Dragon Ball. This is the perfect moment for Goku to destroy his Dragon Ball or find a way to get rid of it. Since Piccolo can track the Dragon Balls, Goku will surely become a target. Sooner or later, Piccolo will come after him. If Piccolo can beat Gohan easily, then Goku doesn't stand much of a chance either, especially since he hasn't fully mastered his powers yet. When Goku encounters a woman named Bulma, he briefly wonders if she could be Piccolo, which is a seemingly foolish thought. After all, Goku knows that Piccolo is thousands of years old, while Bulma appears to be in her 20s. Moreover, Gohan referred to Piccolo using male pronouns, and Bulma is unmistakably female. Furthermore, if Bulma was Piccolo, she would have shot and killed Goku already. Therefore, it's reasonable for Goku to assume that Bulma isn't Piccolo. Bulma wants to buy Goku's Dragon Ball, but he's not selling it. Bulma had the 5-star Dragon Ball, which Mai stole from her. This could have been prevented if they didn't have a skylight in their vault. If Bulma knows that Mai is the one who stole her Dragon Ball, then there's no reason for her to attack Goku. She got a good look at the thief and it clearly wasn't Goku. Bulma invented a machine that can detect and locate the Dragon Balls. Bulma dreams of achieving fame by harnessing the Dragon Balls as an endless energy supply. However, Gohan previously pointed out that the Dragon Balls lack power individually, so they shouldn't be used as an energy source. Goku volunteers to assist Bulma in her quest to locate the remaining Dragon Balls. Goku kindly offers Bulma some food, but she brushes him off. Bulma should eat. It's likely been a long time since she last had a meal, so she could use the nourishment. Goku and Bulma arrive at Rashi's house. They find the door unlocked and decide to enter. This is breaking and entering since they don't have permission to go inside the house, even though the door was unlocked. Things quickly escalate into a fight between Goku and Rashi. This could have been avoided if Goku had taken a moment to explain why they had come. Rashi assumed that Goku was a thief. Goku uses the Shadow Crane Strike technique, a move recognized by Rashi as one of Gohan's. Goku then shares the heartbreaking news of Gohan's passing and the return of Piccolo. Amidst this conversation, Goku discovers Rashi's Dragon Ball. Piccolo discovers another Dragon Ball by evaporating all the water in a lake. Rashi mentions that Shadow Crane Strike is a basic airbending technique, but airbending is from a completely different franchise. As the characters journey to a secluded stone temple, they're surprised to find Chi-Chi there. Chi-Chi heard about what happened to Gohan. It's puzzling how Chi-Chi learned about Gohan's situation, given that there was no one else around and Goku hadn't reported it to the authorities. The characters fall into a trap set by the bandit Yamcha. Bulma should have watched where she was going. Yamcha demands payment in exchange for helping them. It would be wise to give him what he wants to resolve the situation quickly. There's no time to waste. Rashi effortlessly leaps out of the hole. If he was capable of doing so, he should have acted immediately instead of waiting for several hours. With just 2 days until the eclipse, they can't afford to waste any time fooling around. Additionally, Rashi didn't need to spend time recounting the story of Piccolo and Ozaru to Goku, as both Goku and the audience are already familiar with it from the movie's opening. Repeating it serves no purpose other than wasting time. Bulma locates another Dragon Ball close by. Rashi persuades Yamcha to lend a hand by offering him a share of Bulma's future royalties from her inventions. He could have done this from the start since Yamcha was after money. Piccolo creates minions using his own blood. There's a Dragon Ball situated near a volcano, but the characters can't reach it. Rashi might be able to jump across the lava. After all, he effortlessly leaped out of a hole before. The characters are attacked by Piccolo's minions. Goku improvises by hurling their bodies into the lava, crafting a makeshift bridge for himself to cross. Seizing the opportunity, Goku retrieves the Dragon Ball. This moment is interrupted as Mai launches an attack on Goku, but she proves to be no match for him. It's crucial for the characters to leave immediately because the heat and toxic gas emitted by the volcano could quickly overwhelm them, leading to suffocation. Goku could toss the Dragon Balls into the fiery lava. Maybe that would destroy them, similar to how the One Ring got destroyed in The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King. With the eclipse looming just 2 days away, the characters realize they won't be able to gather all the Dragon Balls in time. Rashi suggests an alternative plan to thwart Piccolo. In hindsight, they would have saved time by pursuing this other option from the beginning. Rashi reaches out to Sifu Norris and requests his assistance in creating another Mafuba. Mai engages in a fight with Chi-Chi and manages to obtain some of her blood. How does Mai even recognize Chi-Chi? They've never crossed paths before, and Mai is unaware of Goku's feelings for Chi-Chi. Rashi attempts to instruct Goku in mastering the Kamehameha technique, but Goku struggles to grasp it. Chi-Chi arrives and provides Goku with some much-needed encouragement. With her support, Goku finally succeeds in mastering the Kamehameha. Mai takes on Chi-Chi's appearance and steals the Dragon Balls from the group. The real Chi-Chi steps in to fight Mai. Goku struggles to differentiate between them, but it should be simple since the actual Chi-Chi has a cut on her arm, unlike Mai. Additionally, Goku stated earlier that he could sense Rashi's presence. If that's true, then he should also be capable of discerning which one is the real Chi-Chi. And where did Mai even acquire an exact replica of Chi-Chi's outfit? In the chaos, Goku mistakenly knocks out the real Chi-Chi. Mai shoots Goku and manages to flee. Goku is left clinging to life, barely hanging on. Rashi uses the Kamehameha to revive Goku. Piccolo finally gathers all 7 Dragon Balls, ready to make his wish at the Dragon Temple. But his plans are suddenly interrupted by Rashi's Kamehameha attack. It's revealed that Goku is actually Ozaru. As the eclipse unfolds, Goku undergoes a transformation into Ozaru. But why did Piccolo and Mai repeatedly try to kill Goku throughout the movie if he was meant to be one of Piccolo's minions all along? What happened to the original Ozaru? In the opening scene, it was mentioned that Ozaru vanished over 2,000 years ago. Since Goku is 18 years old, it couldn't have been him. Rashi tries to trap Piccolo using the Mafuba. Unfortunately, Piccolo manages to break out of the seal. Ozaru fatally chokes Rashi, but Goku manages to regain control and transform back into his human form. If Rashi had attempted to reason with Ozaru sooner, maybe Goku could have regained control of his body before killing Rashi.
Yamcha qu'il met.
Goku defeats Piccolo using the Kamehameha. If beating Piccolo was this easy, the characters could have skipped the whole ordeal of finding the Dragon Balls. Instead, Goku should have focused on training and becoming stronger to master the Kamehameha. By collecting more Dragon Balls, the characters inadvertently helped Piccolo, as he managed to gather them all more easily after my stole the team set. If they hadn't bothered searching for the Dragon Balls in the first place, Piccolo wouldn't have been able to obtain them all in time for the eclipse. Moreover, since Rashi also knows how to use the Kamehameha technique, he should have attempted it against Piccolo rather than resorting to the ineffective Mafuba. Piccolo has already broken free from the Mafuba once before. The only permanent solution to stop Piccolo is to kill him. If he's imprisoned, he'll most likely escape again. Goku utilizes all the Dragon Balls to fulfill his wish of resurrecting Rashi. Goku could have wished for more wishes. It's never explicitly stated that this isn't allowed, unlike in Aladdin. If reviving the dead is possible, then requesting more wishes shouldn't be too far-fetched either. Additionally, Goku could have used his wish to bring Gohan back to life. Goku barely knows Rashi. They only met each other about a week ago. Goku should have brought back the man who raised him instead. The Dragon Balls are split up and scattered across the world. The characters will need to find them once more, but with Bulma's locator machine, it shouldn't be too hard. Goku and Chi-Chi face off against each other. It would have been great if Chi-Chi joined the others earlier in battling Piccolo and Mai. Plus, it's pretty clear that Goku will come out on top in this fight. He defeated Piccolo with relative ease, and since Piccolo is much stronger than Chi-Chi, Goku shouldn't have any trouble defeating her. In the mid-credits scene, it's revealed that Piccolo is alive and being tended to by a woman. Goku should have ensured Piccolo's demise by completely obliterating his body. However, considering the lack of sequels planned for the movie, this scene is ultimately inconsequential because there won't be any continuation. What did you think of Dragon Ball Evolution? Share your opinion in the comments. Also, which movie or show would you like to see a How to Beat video for next? Feel free to suggest some. Dragon Ball Evolution received negative reviews from critics and audiences. Lots of people consider Dragon Ball Evolution to be one of the worst movies ever made. Dragon Ball Evolution made around $56.5 million at the box office on a budget of $30 million. Plans for several sequels were in the works, but they were scrapped because of Dragon Ball Evolution's disappointing reception from both critics and at the box office. If you enjoyed the video, remember to give it a like and subscribe for future content. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. So I finally watched the live-action One Piece on Netflix, and I went in with pretty low expectations. Anime to live action does not usually go well, and I was ready for it to feel awkward or forced. But honestly, it surprised me in a really good way, and I think it is actually worth watching. The biggest reason this show works is that it respects the original story. A lot of adaptations try to change things too much or make everything feel more realistic, but One Piece has always been a weird, fun, over-the-top world, and the show keeps that spirit. It does not try to turn it into something darker or more serious than it needs to be. Instead, it leans into the strange characters, the big personalities, and the sense of adventure. It still feels like One Piece just in live-action form, and that is not easy to pull off. The cast also does a really solid job. Inaki Godoy as Luffy is a big win here. He really captures that simple, happy, fearless energy that Luffy has. He does not feel like he is trying to act cool or serious, he just feels like Luffy. Zoro works well too as the more serious, focused fighter, but he is not boring. Nami has a lot more depth and emotion than you might expect this early on, and Usopp starts off exactly how he should, kind of scared and unsure but still trying to prove himself. All of them feel like real people, but they still have that anime-style personality, and that balance is important. The world building is also surprisingly strong. One Piece has always had a really strange world with unique ships, islands, and characters, and the show does not hide that. The sets actually look detailed and full of life. The ships feel real, the towns feel lived in, and the costumes are wild but still believable in this version of the world. It does not feel cheap or rushed, which was one of the biggest worries going in. Another thing that stands out is the tone. One Piece is not meant to be super dark or serious all the time. It is meant to be fun, emotional, and a little silly at times, and the show understands that. It knows when to be serious and when to relax. It does not drag out emotional moments too long, and it does not turn the humor into something that feels like a joke version of the story. It keeps a nice balance that makes it feel like an adventure instead of a grounded drama trying too hard to be realistic. And honestly, I think it is worth watching even if you have never seen the anime before. You do not need any background knowledge to follow it. It explains the world in a simple way, and you can just enjoy it as a pirate adventure story with a lot of heart. And if you are already a fan, it is still fun to see these characters brought to life in a new way, even if it is not perfect. So yeah, I went into this expecting another disappointing live-action anime adaptation, but I came out actually impressed. It is fun, it is weird in a good way, and it really feels like the people making it cared about the source material. If you skipped it because you thought it would be bad, I think it is worth giving it a chance. I just watched Alita, Battle Angel, and I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Going in, I thought it would be a pretty average sci-fi action movie with good visuals but a weak story. But it actually has a lot more heart than I expected, and it ends up being pretty memorable because of that. The thing that stands out most is Alita herself. The CGI could have easily been distracting, but it actually works really well. Her face is expressive, and she feels real in a way that makes it easy to connect with her. A lot of the movie depends on her emotions and reactions, and they pull that off. You stop thinking about her being CGI after a while and just see her as a character. Her story is pretty simple at first. She wakes up with no memory, gets taken in by a kind doctor, and slowly starts learning about the world she is in and who she used to be. What makes it interesting is her personality. She is curious, emotional, and very intense when it comes to anything involving fighting or protecting people. The world around her is harsh, and she stands out in it because she still has this strong sense of fairness and emotion. The action scenes are one of the best parts of the movie. They are fast, clean, and easy to follow, which is not always the case with modern action films. Alita's fighting style is really fun to watch, especially as she starts to improve and fully understand what she is capable of. The fights have weight to them, and they feel personal instead of just random chaos. The world building is also really solid. The city feels split in a clear way, with a rich upper area and a rough lower area that feels crowded and dangerous. It does not over-explain everything, but you still understand how the world works just from what you see. The contrast between areas helps sell the story and makes everything feel lived in. There are also some emotional moments that land better than I expected. The relationship between Alita and Hugo adds some heart to the story, even if it is a bit predictable at times. The movie balances action and quieter moments pretty well, so it never feels like it is just non-stop fighting. That said, it is not perfect. Some parts of the story feel rushed, and you can tell it was meant to set up a sequel that never really happened. A few characters could have used more development, and certain plot points move along too quickly. But even with that, the main character and overall world carry it pretty well. Overall, Alita, Battle Angel is a lot better than its reputation suggests. It has strong visuals, solid action, and a main character that actually works. It is not a flawless movie, but it is definitely worth watching if you like sci-fi action with some emotional weight behind it. I just watched the live-action Ghost in the Shell, and I came away pretty mixed on it. There are parts of it that look really good and feel like they understand the world, but at the same time, it never fully comes together in a way that feels as strong as it should. The biggest strength of the movie is the visual style. The city looks great. It has that clean but grim cyberpunk feel with glowing ads, dense buildings, and a constant sense that everything is controlled by technology. The action scenes also look solid, especially the way Major moves. The cybernetic abilities and slow-motion moments are well done, and they do capture some of that anime-style energy in live action. Scarlett Johansson as the Major is also decent in the role in terms of physical performance. She has the cold, controlled movement down, and she fits the idea of someone who is more machine than human at first. The problem is less about her acting and more about how the character is written and how the story handles her identity. The main issue with the movie is that it feels like it is trying to simplify a story that works better when it is more complex. The original Ghost in the Shell is very focused on philosophy, identity, and what it means to be human. This version still touches on those ideas, but it keeps everything more surface level. It tells you the themes instead of really letting you sit with them. The plot itself is also pretty straightforward and a bit predictable. You can see most of the twists coming early on, and the emotional beats do not always hit as hard as they should. Some of the side characters feel underused, like they are there mostly to move the story forward instead of being fully developed people. That said, I do not think it is a complete failure like some people say. It just feels like a missed opportunity. There are moments where you can see what it was trying to be, especially in the visuals and certain action scenes, but it never fully commits to the deeper philosophical side that makes Ghost in the Shell stand out in the first place. Overall, Ghost in the Shell live action is a decent-looking sci-fi movie with some good action and atmosphere, but it loses a lot of what made the original so interesting. It is worth watching if you are curious or just want a cyberpunk action film, but it does not really replace or match the anime in terms of depth or impact. I just watched Knights of the Zodiac, and I have to be honest, this one was rough. I went in hoping for a fun fantasy action movie, even if it was a bit messy, but it ends up feeling rushed, undercooked, and kind of confused about what it wants to be. The biggest problem is the story. It moves way too fast and barely gives anything time to breathe. Characters show up, explain a big piece of lore, and then we jump straight to the next thing. There is not much build-up, so even the important moments do not hit very hard. It feels like it is trying to cover a whole season of a show in one movie. The world of Saint Seiya actually has a lot of potential. The idea of knights, constellations, and cosmic powers could be really cool in live action. But here, it is barely explored in a satisfying way. A lot of the lore is told through quick dialogue instead of being shown, so it is hard to feel invested in it. Seiya as the main character is fine, but he does not get enough development to really carry the story. He has the classic underdog setup, but it feels rushed so you do not fully connect with his journey. The same goes for most of the supporting characters. They show up, get a few lines, and then the movie moves on before they can really become memorable. The action is probably the strongest part, but even that is inconsistent. Some fights have decent energy and effects, especially when the powers are fully on display. But other times it feels a bit messy and hard to follow. There are moments where you can see what they were going for, but it does not always land. Visually, it is a mixed bag. Some armor designs and effects look interesting, but others feel oddly flat or low impact. The fantasy elements should feel big and epic, but a lot of the time they feel smaller than they should for a story like this. Overall, Knights of the Zodiac feels like a rushed adaptation of something that needed more time to develop. There are pieces of a cool fantasy action movie in there, but they are buried under pacing issues and shallow storytelling. If you are curious, you might get some enjoyment out of the action, but it is hard to call it a strong adaptation or a standout movie. I just watched the Netflix live-action Death Note, and honestly, it feels like a big missed opportunity. The idea of adapting Death Note into a Western setting could have worked, but the execution ends up feeling rushed, messy, and way too different from what makes the original so strong. The biggest issue is Light. In the original, Light is calm, smart, and very controlled, which makes him dangerous. In this version, he is way more emotional and impulsive. Instead of feeling like a genius slowly planning everything, he often feels like he is reacting to things as they happen. That change really weakens the core tension of the story. L is probably the most interesting part of the movie. His personality is still weird, sharp, and intense, and the actor does a decent job with what he is given. But even then, he feels a bit toned down compared to the original. He is not quite as calculated or intimidating, and the cat and mouse dynamic between him and Light does not feel as strong. Ryuk is actually one of the better elements. The design is solid, and Willem Dafoe's voice fits really well. He has that creepy, amused presence that works for the character. But even with that, he does not get enough screen time or impact on the story to really elevate the movie. The pacing is another big problem. The movie tries to cover too much in too little time, so everything moves quickly without enough buildup. Important moments do not have time to land, and some plot points feel like they happen just to get to the next scene. It feels more like a summary of Death Note than a full story. Tonally, it also feels off. Death Note is supposed to be tense, psychological, and slow-burning. This version leans more into teenage drama and quick twists, which takes away a lot of the suspense. Instead of a careful mind game, it feels more like things are happening randomly to keep the plot moving. Overall, Netflix's Death Note is not terrible on a basic movie level, but as an adaptation it really misses the point of what made the original so compelling. The characters are changed in ways that weaken the story, the pacing is too fast, and the tension is not really there. It might be worth watching out of curiosity, but it does not come close to the original anime or manga.